Welcome back, everyone. Again, happy National Mindfulness Day. I am excited we have made it well past the halfway mark for those who have stayed the entire time. I am excited to have you here with us, of course, and for those who are coming back in, welcome back. I am absolutely honored to introduce our next speaker, Trista Sanford. She is the founder and owner of Aura Tea House and Bakery. Aura is a premier source for hand-blended loose leaf teas and handcrafted desserts, blended with your well-being in mind and baked with life's most precious celebrations at heart. Aura's tea blends and desserts are crafted to give customers a soul-satisfying experience. That being said, it has also become an outlet that Trista uses to offer motivation and reminders to live life more mindfully. Trista finds joy in building people up and supporting them in reaching their goals. Prior to becoming a full-time entrepreneur in 2021, Trista had the pleasure of working alongside professors and students at Vanderbilt University Medical Center, Meharry Medical College, and UNC Eiselman School of Pharmacy. This experience has not only assisted in helping her hone her skills and talents as a business owner, but has equipped her with knowledge that she uses in curating products and services. And I know during that bio break where multiple people signed up for the VIP giveaway that it's in part because you want to have some of Trista's teas. So with no further ado, welcome.
Thank you so much, Melissa. I want to make sure that you can hear me okay and that you can see the share. Awesome. So thank you for that introduction. Thank you for today and just putting this together. I want to make sure that I express some gratitude to you for getting us all together. I've already heard so many tips and tools, resources, and chocolate that I will be trying out. So yeah, without further ado, I'm going to start talking about the practice of mindfulness. And so yeah, I'm excited to be leading this portion of the summit today. And so Melissa already did a wonderful job of introducing me, but I'm just going to hit some highlights. So I am Trista Sanford. I am a native of Nashville, Tennessee, but I currently live in North Carolina. One thing that I love about the state is the vast terrain. So to the west of us, there are mountains. Right in the center, you have beautiful cityscapes. We have Charlotte and Raleigh and Durham. And then to the East Coast, you have beautiful beaches, which is my favorite. I share the state with my family. That's my husband, Doug, and my daughter, Naomi. And then, of course, I own Aura Tea House and Bakery, where we offer premium loose leaf teas, desserts, and then I like to sprinkle in some mindfulness and motivation everywhere that I can. So I definitely do that in business. And so the first thing that I want to do is to define mindfulness. So if you do a Google search, you'll find so many different definitions of mindfulness, but this is always my favorite. And so I'm just going to read it right off the screen. Mindfulness is the quality of being present and fully engaged with whatever we're doing at the moment, free from distraction or judgment, and aware of our thoughts and feelings without getting caught up in them. And that's from Headspace. And one thing that I love about this is that we're often talking about the moment. And so a lot of us find our anxiety, our uncomfortableness in situations comes from either thinking about the past, something that's already happened and we can't change it, or thinking about the future, things that we don't know if it will happen or not, but sometimes we just get caught up in it. We get caught up during our work days of what's for dinner. How will my child be when I get home? Meetings that haven't happened yet, and sometimes anticipating what people may say in response to what we have to offer. And so I love that this is talking about doing things in the moment, don't judge it, and being aware of our thoughts. And so I also want to talk about what mindfulness is not for me. And so I think that a lot of times, especially previously in working in university settings and medical centers where everyone is hustling and bustling to get to the next place, when you talk about mindfulness, some people kind of get uncomfortable because they're thinking about time. They're thinking about one of the practices of mindfulness, which is meditation. But, we think we have to be by river rocks with a bustling river or some white noise, sitting crisscross applesauce, chanting mantras, and doing, this active thing of nothingness. And so one thing that I love in looking into mindfulness and talking about mindfulness is that letting people know that it is an act. It's a practice. It's something you can do no matter where you are. And it's wonderful for grounding and allowing you to be more present. And so it's something that we can start to do throughout our day, throughout our work day, our time as an entrepreneur, in our parenting and otherwise. And so when I talk about mindfulness as a practice, there are 5 key components that I like to focus on, and I'll talk about each of these more in depth. But the first is to observe, to feel, to breathe, to accept, and to absorb. And so we'll start out with the act of observing. And so to observe, we want to contemplate what's around us, taking in each moment as it comes. And so I've listed here 3 key places or things that you're doing throughout your day where you can practice observation. So the first is our setting. That's the easiest way to start to ground ourselves. So just taking note of what's around you. So for me, I love working in the office. One, you can see this beautiful light that comes in right in the afternoon. It's really good and energizing. There's also a painting behind me that my mom and I did. And so I wanted to make sure it was in my workspace as something that I can kind of look at, noticing what it means to me whenever I kind of start to drift off. Another way that we can observe is to look at other people. So I'm not sure if you have or if you've noticed, but sometimes we can look at someone and notice things we've never noticed before. I was on a retreat with one of my best friends. We've been friends since we were in 7th grade. And when I started practicing mindfulness, I took the time to look at her. And you would be amazed how much you don't really look at people. We tend to look through them when we're thinking about all of the other things that we have going on. And I noticed how beautiful her eyes are. Looking at my daughter actively, noticing her curls, the way that her eyes sparkle. Those are just easy ways to kind of bring you back to present. Another way to observe is actively moving throughout the day. And so as an example here, I listed looking at the beauty in nature as you work, walk, and drive. And so one thing that I noticed when moving here in my corporate job was the beautiful hydrangeas that were along my walk from the garage to my office, and how many people were just walking by them. And I'm like, hello, look at these beautiful hydrangeas, look at all of these beautiful colors. But it's amazing how zoom focused we get on what we have to do next instead of being present. The next key point is to feel, and that's letting yourself feel your emotions without letting them control you. And so there are 3 ways that I encourage you to feel, and that's being fully in your feelings. And so, I heard recently someone say, oh yes, my child just has really big feelings. And my daughter has really big feelings. But we're not robots. If you're wanting to laugh, laugh heartily. If you're wanting to cry, sob if you have to. Just allowing the feelings to come, because oftentimes, especially in our work environment, we think that we have to turn everything off and become a different person, which is what comes next, and that's being freely, and that's authentically and genuinely being yourself. The next is being intentionally, and that's taking hold of your feelings, not being caught up or judging them, trying to change them, but also we want to make sure that as we're moving throughout the day, we're being intentional in how we feel, checking in with ourselves to say, hey, Could I have done something different? Is this genuinely how I feel? Am I dealing with something else aside from this? Did that really hurt my feelings? And so we want to make sure that we're also being intentional. The next is my favorite, and that's to breathe. And that's focusing on the pattern and feel of your breath as you inhale and exhale. And so there's two ways to do this. One is what I'm going to call inactive breathing. And that is just breathing normally, not changing anything. Focus in on where you feel your breath. So for some of us, it may be in our chest. For others, it may be in our abdomen. Sometimes you can even feel your breath in your back, noticing any twinges or anything that you get when you breathe. Another way is active breath work or active breathing. And that is making sure that we take captive of our breath. So breathing in deeply, deep inhales, hold, 1, 2, 3, deep exhale. And so on a personal note, this is something that I do, especially when I go to the doctor. I have something that we call white coat syndrome. And one way to let your body know that you're safe, you're sound, and you're grounded is to do active breath work. Next, we're going to talk about acceptance, and that is accepting where you are at this moment and trusting the process of your evolution. And so one thing that I love to say is there's only this moment. We're not going to worry about the past. We're not going to focus on things that haven't happened yet. Knowing that you're in the best place now to make your next best move. So take full control over what you can, which is right now in this moment, and knowing that we have to trust the journey, trust the process of our lives. And then lastly is to absorb, and that's to slow down and absorb what you see, hear, taste, and touch with every activity that you do. I'm so happy that I go after our chocolate mindfulness activity because that is such a great way to do this. I had a brownie during, and I loved it. But you want to take in everything. So an easy way to do this is take in 3 things that you see, say them aloud, 2 things that you hear, 1 thing you can feel. So how does the room feel? What's the temperature like? How do you feel in your seat or your feet on the floor? Do you hear birds chirping? Do you see anything in the office? I love to keep brightly colored things on my desk so that I can absorb those things. And so one more quote that I love is, with mindfulness, you can establish yourself in the present in order to touch the wonders of life that are available in that moment. It goes on to say, many people are alive, but don't touch the miracle of being alive. And so with that, if you have any questions, I'd love to take some now. And thank you so much for your time.
Could you share with us a little bit about the teas that you offer for those of us who want to practice mindfulness with a cup of your tea?
Absolutely, for sure. And so I hand blend all of my own teas. It's something that I've always loved to do. I've done it for myself for many years. Something that I shared with family and friends. During quarantine, I just kind of started to really get into it, thinking more towards business. And so each tea is focused on 3 different things, and which are the pillars of Aura. It's inspiration, intention, and love. And so Aura Signature, for example, which the winner will get in the giveaway, is a South African honey bush. Thinking about flavor profiles from my background in baking, because a lot of people think tea tastes like hot water or dirty water, I've heard, was to give you a full experience. And so I wanted to be intentional about that. So to the honey bush, which is naturally sweet, also kind of a little earthy, I added dried papaya. I gave it some floral notes with safflowers and cornflower blossoms. And so I wanted to give, with each of my teas, a full experience. So there's herbals, black teas, green teas. I have way more teas and things coming out soon as we start to get into tea season with cooler weather. But yeah, please feel free to visit orateahouse.com to see all the offerings that we currently have.
Absolutely. Thank you. And there's one more question. You mentioned that you observe other people, like your daughter. Do you find it easier to be mindful with your little one than others? Because Leah says she feels like she spends so much time savoring her son's presence. He's her only. It doesn't come as easily with, say, her husband.
Yeah, so it's easy. It's easy with my daughter because one, she's getting up there in age, so she's 4. So now she might say like, "Why are you looking at me?" But it is easier. She's always here. She's my only. You can hear her now. She's always around. She's always wondering what's okay, baby. She's always wondering what's next, and so it's a lot easier for me to sit and observe. But honestly, with my husband, probably in the last 6 months, I've just kind of started to dote on him a little bit, and it kind of makes him a little uncomfortable. But I might say something like, "Wow, I love how the sun bounces off your eyes," or I mean, he's got a bald head, so I might say like, "It's really nice that your skin is so smooth, like on your head." And so just kind of start to take small things. It's not necessarily you having to stare for a long amount of time, but I've found that giving compliments is almost me practicing mindfulness by observing my husband. Or, you, Leah, I love what you have behind you, like the tapestry. I love your earrings. So just little things like that, yeah, that you can practice. And so it may be complimentary, but it is you practicing mindfulness in that moment.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Trista. And will you be joining us for the networking event, the session at the end of our summit?
Yep, I'm sure going to try. It hinges on a 4-year-old.
Understood. So again, from 8 until 9 p.m. to conclude our Employee Wellness Summit, we'll be joining many of our wellness thought leaders for an opportunity to learn how you can bring their products or their services or their wellness workshops into your company, organization, university, wherever it is that you work, live, and play. So I'm going to introduce to you our next speaker, Leah Pinelli. Leah is one smart cookie. Despite holding degrees from both Stanford and UC Berkeley, she was unable to crack the code on her struggle with overeating for decades. No matter how many books read, diets tried, or mindful eating methods subscribed to, she could not resolve her struggle with food and weight. After becoming a life coach in 2016, she learned about weight loss coaching and was totally skeptical. After all, if it worked, she would have tried it already. She decided to give it a go anyways and was blown away by the results. Not only did she lose weight without using willpower or resistance, but she no longer experienced the overhunger and cravings that had plagued her since childhood. Weight loss coaching provided the missing link. It not only helped her figure out what to eat, but it addressed her mindset around food and weight. She learned to think differently, which led her to eating differently and in a simple, sustainable way. That was 30 pounds ago. Today, she lives happily with her family in California and maintains her natural weight without counting calories or carbs. She's on a mission to teach other women how to ditch the diet drama and create the lives they crave unapologetically. And today we get to hear from Leah about imperfect mindful eating. So welcome.
Thank you, Melissa. And thank you, Trista. That was a lovely presentation. Got me thinking differently a little bit about how I'm going to go appreciate my husband later. Okay. So I'm going to start off with a true confession that I really hate mindful eating. Okay. I should say I used to hate mindful eating, but I've actually come to a different place with it. And by the way, I've still got my chocolate right here. I loved eating it mindfully with Melissa. Something about being around Melissa that I'm just like, whatever Melissa wants me to do, I feel so much calmer whenever I'm doing it. So I love that. But today I'm actually going to give you 4 steps to identify the reasons why you might be avoiding mindful eating like I used to. And maybe reasons why, if you are somebody who overeats or who self-sabotages with food, finds yourself kind of inhaling it like I used to and not really taking the time to allow it to nourish you. I'm going to be giving you 4 steps on how to transform that relationship into a more mindful one today, but more mindful in an imperfect kind of way. So as Melissa mentioned, I am a former big time overeater, and I struggled with my relationship with food and weight since the age of 9. I had tried every diet in the book because what I wanted desperately was, it was less about weight loss, to be honest with you. And it was far more about wanting to find peace with food. And I really wanted to find kind of a space of food freedom with food. And so, of course, I had tried mindful eating, right? Because I mean, I had read all these books about it. I was a practiced meditation, or I was a seasoned meditation practitioner. And so it seemed like I should just, it all should kind of come together, and I should be able to eat mindfully because I love meditation and I would practice yoga. But yet when I would sit down to eat, I would go very fast and I would inhale to the point where then I was overeating and full, because a lot of you know that it takes a little time for your stomach to signal to your brain that you've had enough, among other reasons why maybe my stomach wasn't signaling properly. So I was really looking for that peace with food. But what I found was that every time I would slow down and I would try the practice of mindful eating, similar to what we did with Melissa with the chocolate earlier, if I was sitting at the table with my meal trying to do that, I found that I was almost immediately filled with anxiety, like a sense of urgency. Like I said, I wanted to go quickly, and discomfort, like really uncomfortable feelings when I would try to be mindful. So of course I would avoid trying to be mindful, because who wants to feel those things? So I would speed up to, and I remember kind of, it was this sense of like feeling like I just wanted to get it over with. I wanted to get eating over with. Even if it was something delicious, something that I had looked forward to eating, like I'm Italian American. So looking forward to eating, like my favorite pasta that my mom makes. And yet I would inhale it to the point where I wasn't even cognizant of eating it, really. And it didn't matter if it was my mom's pasta or chocolate cake or like carrot sticks. It didn't matter. I just wanted it to be done with. So I really resisted mindful eating for a long time because I didn't want to feel those feelings. And then I enrolled in a coaching program many years ago, and they gave us an assignment to eat mindfully. And of course, I rolled my eyes. I tried to avoid it. And eventually, I very reluctantly did the exercise. But this time, because I had had life coach training and I had been trained now extensively on how our thoughts are what create our feelings, and then our feelings are what drive our actions. So if my action was eating really quickly, there had to be a feeling behind that. But the feeling behind that had to have been fueled from a thought. So this time, even though I didn't want to eat mindfully, I was eating mindfully anyway, just to check off the assignment. And I realized that the feeling that was driving the urgency behind and my resistance to mindfulness was actually less about anxiety and was more about shame. I had a lot of shame and guilt tied to eating, and tied to eating anything, whether it was chocolate cake or carrot sticks. I felt guilty about eating. And that was because, as somebody who had grown up as a child, was on diets and always trying to lose weight and was always overweight, and all of those messages that I got from the world was that I wasn't doing it right. There was something wrong with me, right? I had to be on a diet. My sister didn't. So I got these messages from very early on that I couldn't be trusted with food. And so I wanted to get food over with, but I also loved food, because who doesn't? It's delicious, right? Especially, chocolate. So when I discovered that what was driving those feelings that I was having was shame and guilt around just eating in general, that's when I really was able to do something about it. That's when I was able to kind of get underneath the beliefs that I had about myself that I wasn't even aware of. I didn't want to stop eating food, so I really had to get underneath that. So what I created for myself from that experience was this concept of imperfect mindful eating. And it's a process of understanding why you're eating in the first place, right? And getting to the root of, why am I eating this in the first place? Am I really even enjoying it? I enjoyed my chocolate so much more when Melissa led us through mindful chocolate eating, I enjoyed it so much more than I usually do when I kind of just pop it in my mouth and get back to work, right? It was totally different. So really getting to the root of what it is that you want from this food experience and what you're looking for. So I'm going to give you these 4 steps now. So grab a paper and pen if you have it, because why you're eating really matters, especially if you find yourself overeating constantly or feeling like you have kind of a fraught relationship with food. Especially food that tastes good, like chocolate. So the first thing is, step number 1 is to determine what kind of hunger you are experiencing. And I go into detail on the imperfect eating instructions that I have all in a PDF for you all. But the only 4 types of hunger that I really kind of find useful. The first is physical hunger. And that's the kind of hunger that we all know it because it goes from our stomach to our brain. It's like a grumble or a rumble in our tummy, or it's a lightheadedness in our brains. And it's a signal that it's time to eat physically. The second kind of hunger is a habit hunger. Habit hunger is, oh, well, it's 12 o'clock, time to go eat. But we haven't even checked in to see if we're actually hungry. We're just going to go eat anyway because it's 12 o'clock. That would be habit hunger. Or going to the movies and getting popcorn without really asking yourself, do I want popcorn? The third kind of eating is what I just call pre-planned kind of event eating. So if you're going to a birthday party and you know that you're going to enjoy some chocolate cake, that's a pre-planned event. And then the fourth is emotional. And that's when we're eating for reasons other than physical, and actually habit and pre-planned can kind of fall into that category. So the second step, so first you determine which of these 4 are the reasons I'm eating. The second step is then to ask yourself, okay, what's going on here? Without shame or guilt, just curiosity. So if you find that you're like, wait, I'm not actually hungry, but I really want to eat these chocolate covered almonds right now. Asking yourself, okay, what's underneath it, right? Just be curious, asking yourself, what is the reason I want to eat if I'm not physically hungry? Am I looking for comfort? Am I looking for entertainment? Am I looking for a little pleasure in my day? You can also use what I call the hunger scale, which is a tool that I teach for free on my website, leahpinelli.com. And that it's a tool that actually helps you to kind of gauge where you are with physical versus emotional hunger. And that can help you here as well. The third step is you want to ask yourself then, after you figured out what's going on, you're like, okay, I'm not hungry, I'm tired. And so I am craving chocolate, say. I'm craving chocolate covered almonds. So, or I'm going to go into the pantry and I'm going to get a box of Cheez-Its, my kids' snacks. And I'm going to, or the vending machine at work, whatever it is, I feel like I need to wake up. I want some stimulation, whatever it is. The third step then is to ask yourself, do I like this reason? Do I like this reason for eating? Now, earlier when we did the chocolate mindfulness exercise with Melissa, I really liked my reason. In fact, I brought chocolate to my desk just because I was hoping she was going to guide us through it after I got here, and she did. But I was here for the experience. I ate chocolate for the experience of getting to do it mindfully, right, with this group. I like that reason. That's a good reason. Last Friday, we went to the movies. I got popcorn and a glass of wine. It was one of those movie theaters. It was fantastic. And I like those reasons. I had a great time. But there have been many times in my life where I found myself on my couch binge watching the Real Housewives of whatever season and just eating huge bowls of popcorn because I was exhausted and tired and just wanted pleasure and wanted to escape the feeling of exhaustion and disappointment. Those are 2 very different reasons for eating. So really figuring out, do I like the reason that I'm eating right now? Am I eating to please someone right now? Because I don't want to disappoint, my partner because they made me this beautiful meal or whatever it is. So really asking yourself, do I like my reason? And if you don't like your reason, then you need to ask yourself, what is it that I really want right now? Because I promise you, if you're eating for a reason that is emotional that you don't really like, then there is something underneath that you really, really want. So for me, it was, I wanted rest. I wanted sleep. I wanted some joy. I wanted some entertainment, some satisfaction, but the bowl of popcorn, even though in the moment, that's what I thought was going to get me there, it wasn't getting me there. It was actually making me more and more miserable. So really asking yourself that question. And then the fourth step is to insert a speed bump. The idea of a speed bump is it's a practice of just checking in with yourself. So one of the challenges that I've had with mindful eating is that it is kind of focus intensive, right? And a lot of times as a busy full-time working mom, I don't have time to sit there and focus on every single meal that I eat, right? So instead, I insert these little speed bumps, especially if I'm like, okay, I got 10 minutes to grab lunch and then I got to go. I will insert a little speed bump, which is essentially just the idea of, I'm not going to worry about being mindful right now as I wolf down this salad, but after a few minutes, I'm going to just take a pause and check in with myself. 30 to 60-second pause to check in and see, how am I feeling? How am I digesting? Do I want more? Do I like my reasons for wanting more, right? Is it physical versus emotional hunger? So that speed bump can be like a little mindful, what's the word? Like in Spanish, they would say a punto, but just like a little point in your day, right? Just a little point in your day. And so that's it, because becoming mindful of your emotional landscape will actually tell you so much more about yourself and your relationship with food than any other source could. So to recap really quickly, first, you want to determine what kind of hunger you're experiencing. Second, you want to ask yourself what's going on here if you're eating for non-physical reasons, with curiosity and love, not with shame and guilt. Third, you want to ask yourself, do you like your reason? And if not, what are you really craving? And then the fourth is insert a speed bump. That's it. That's what I got.
That's fantastic. Thank you for all of the real life examples for those of us who are listening right now and on the replay. I know that many of those examples can resonate, and I certainly can relate to. So I'm curious if anyone has a question that they would like to ask Leah. And I'll just say that the speed bump is something that I think is very original and a really good way to pause during the day, whether you be working from home or in the office. Just taking that moment to pause and not necessarily continue to just go while you're working, right? Fantastic. So any questions for Leah, please feel free to put them in the chat. Will you be joining us for the networking from 8 until 9?
Definitely, I will be there.
Fantastic. So you'll have an opportunity to talk with Leah about any sort of way that she can come and be a part of your organization or company with speaking engagement, or any of those resources that she mentioned, bringing them to you. So we'll take a speed bump now, right?
Yes, definitely. And the speed bump, I think Melissa, you and I might have talked about this, but it works well with kids too. That concept of like, let's just like take a step, lean back, take a few breaths. Do I want more? Especially when it comes to sugar, which can be hard to stop eating, right? So it's a good one.
Indeed. All right. Well, if there aren't any questions yet, I believe you'll be sticking around during the next presentation. So would you be open to answering any question in the chat?
Yeah, and I actually did get a question just now, but it came direct to me. Should I read it, but keep it anonymous?
Absolutely. Please do.
Okay, so the question was, do you have any pointers for when you don't like your reason, but you're having a hard time figuring out what you really need? Oh, yes, that is such a good question, especially because a lot of times I would figure out, well, I know what I need right now. What I need is to not be a mom and to have no responsibilities after a long day of work. Like I need to go to a yoga class, but I can't go to a yoga class because I got to feed people, And so a lot of times you know what you want, but you can't. Yes, Trista said, yes, I feel that. Yes. So a lot of times you know what you want, but you can't actually have it right now, or you could, but they might call CPS and take your children because you're leaving. And so the point is that, of course, I'm kind of an exaggerator, y'all, but not really. But that part is actually really important, because part of what I teach in my work and in my program is how to actually carve out a baseline for yourself so that we don't get to this point. Because as women in particular, who are working professionals, business owners, running companies, things like that, we're still carrying 80% of the housework at home, among other social expectations that we have, right? And so a lot of times we just have way too much on our plates. And so I think a big part of it is really figuring out what you need. I needed a coach to kind of help me figure that out. Like, what is it that I need and want? And then how do I start turning my obstacles into opportunities? So how do I start creating the life that I'm craving while still, you're not running off to Ibiza, like how do I really do that? And so I do think that that's a part of the work. But for pointers in terms of when you don't like your reason, I promise you the first step is actually quite linked to what Melissa was taking us through early, which is, and I do teach this a variation of what Melissa was teaching. It's not exactly mindfulness in my program, but I do teach that, really pausing that speed bump and then what to do in the speed bump, which is really about getting quiet with yourself, getting still with yourself, and allowing for that emotion to pass through so that you can really transform that emotion into a catalyst for changing what needs to be changed in your life.
Phenomenal.
Great question. Thank you.
Something that absolutely relates to wellness in the workplace. So thank you for bringing that full circle. All right, I am going to introduce our next speaker in this mindfulness session. And in order to do that, I will bring up to the stage Alexis Russel. Please join us. Hello, hello. Welcome.
Hi, can you hear me?
Loud and clear. It is so good to see you.
It's so good to see you and Leah and the other two photos and everyone else that's here. Um, I know you're gonna do like the introduction. I do have a presentation. Is it okay if I share my screen now?
Absolutely. Please do that.
Awesome.
Yes. And while you do that, I will share with those of you who don't know, now you will know Alexis Russel. As a mom, Alexis struggled with postpartum depression, recognizing the only way to move forward was to ask and answer the tough questions we often want to avoid. Alexis began developing mindfulness tools and resources to support her mental wellness journey, a true transformation. Alexis found herself inspired by her journey and now develops resources and hosts mindful story workshops to help people recognize that they have a story, value, and purpose. Alexis studied sociology, anthropology, and psychology at the Rochester Institute of Technology and earned a Women in Entrepreneurship certificate from Cornell University. When Alexis isn't working, she enjoys spending time with her husband and two daughters. And she will absolutely tell us a little bit more about one of the VIP prize giveaways, which will be her fall story cards expansion pack with that pen and gratitude journal. But I hand over the mic to you, Alexis. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Is everyone able to see my screen okay? Wonderful. Okay, so as Melissa said, I'm Alexis and I am filled with gratitude to be able to share this space with you all this evening. Thank you, Melissa, for creating this summit and holding space for us to be together today as well. So we are going to go over human being versus human doing. And so we'll do a quick intro, really get into what human being versus human doing is all about. There'll be a really quick takeaway exercise. I'm hoping people will participate in the chat, and then we'll go over being human in the workplace, right? So to start, who am I? This is me. In my family, I am a mom, a wife, an entrepreneur, founder of Inspiring Experiences. I started my business from my own journey with anxiety, experiencing toxic workplaces, postpartum depression, and just really wanted to help others not just cope, but find healthy practices to be proactive and create space for mental wellness and mindfulness in their personal and professional lives. So at my company, I believe that together we can create a world where practicing mindfulness, sharing our stories, being our whole selves is accepted and normalized everywhere. So what is this? What is human being versus human doing? What does it mean? When I first heard this concept, it was one of those real aha moments. It was the first one that I think I ever really experienced, breaking down the human being versus the human doing. So the human being is all encompassing, right? It's who you are at your core. It's your emotions, your values, your lifestyle. It's you being present, mindful. It's your core values. Human beings simply believe that their self-worth is not defined by their accomplishments, but rather by their values, their attitudes, their beliefs, right? And then on the other side of that is human doing. And the human doing, it focuses and feeds on the work that you do, right? It's really interesting because we kind of live in this society with a mindset that tells us to do things and do them really well in order to be valued, you know, in our workplaces, in our schools, in our homes, businesses, wherever it may be. We're always getting these messages of like, do, instead of just be. And so human doings also kind of, they feel like really good when they're accomplishing things, right? They're always trying to prove themselves. And in turn, they're living in this perpetual state of discomfort. And it sometimes can lead to feeling worthless or even undeserving of love if they aren't doing or accomplishing something. So something that I used to do whenever I went to like a networking event or a job interview, um, something I always would do, you know, when someone would say, well, tell me about yourself, is the go-to response. Well, I'm an event planner. I work for such and such company, right? And that answers their question, absolutely. But what would happen if you decided to reframe your mindset and answer as the whole human being that you are? So tell me about yourself. Well, I'm a mom and a story enthusiast with a passion for writing, equanimity, and mindfulness. That creates like this entirely new spectrum of who you are, right? It leaves people feeling interested and more inclined to get to know the essence of you, and what it means to be you. So we're going to practice really quickly. Um, and I simply want you to take like a minute or two, maybe not that long, but just describe yourself using a couple of words or phrases and share in the chat your responses. Who are you as a human being? So the key to this exercise is really saying who you are without mentioning your job, right? Because that sometimes is really our go-to, is, you know, I'm this or I do this and I work for this company. But I want you to think about what makes you happy. What's like a recent hardship that you may have faced, or what are you passionate about? Are you a mom? Are you an aunt, an uncle? What makes you fun? What makes you a human being? Feel free to share any words that come to mind that describes who you are at your core in the chat. And it won't take too long because I know we're on a time limit. Confident, athletic, funny, wife, mom, lover of love. I love that. um, DV survivor that empowers women. Right. That gets to the core of who you are. It creates conversation, connection with other people, right? Wonderful. Thank you all for sharing. Um, so the idea here is to just like really remember that who you are isn't necessarily what you do, right? Passionate about female empowerment. I'm a girl's girl. I love it. So, how does this then translate into the workplace? How do we bring our whole authentic selves to work as human beings? Um, my first, before I go into a little bit more of what that means and what the answers are to these questions, my first thing is boundaries, right? We always have to set boundaries. We don't have to give everything to everyone, especially at work, right? But the other thing that comes to mind is that question of, you know, what can we do to reframe our perspectives, our actions, and see our coworkers and colleagues and even ourselves, right, as human beings with emotions, with lives outside of the job. Part of what it means to be human, or rather a human who fosters a positive, an open workplace, a healthy workplace, is being authentic. It's being open and understanding, vulnerable, empathetic. So we're going to go over really quickly these 5 tips to being human in the workplace. Basically, it's just bringing more of what makes you to work. So number 1, practice reframing and empathy. Here's an example. You send an email asking someone a quick question. The response you get, you read it, and it's like sarcastic or snarky or something that is just like rubs you the wrong way, right? Reframing and empathy in this situation is changing your perspective to maybe view it as, okay, maybe they were busy and just needed to respond to me as soon as they could or as quickly as possible. Maybe they're having an off day and needed didn't mean it that in the way that you read it. Reframing situations in the workplace is truly key to creating and maintaining a healthy and positive space for everyone. And then the next one is embracing healthy conflict. So we all have different viewpoints, different perspectives, and sometimes it can really honestly be hard accepting that. I know that I'm still growing and learning to connect with people from different backgrounds, different opinions and viewpoints. And the key here is to learn how to be interested versus interesting. So you want to be curious and open about understanding the differences that we have with each other. And then you want to be willing to have intentional, deep listening conversations and discussions with your coworkers and colleagues without judgment. That's the key. And with a willingness to explore those possible paths forward from any conversation, situation, or conflict that may arise at work, because it happens. The third one is being dependable. If you say that you'll do something, simply follow through, right? When you are a reliable person, people then can turn to you and trust you. They become open with what they need, and then they know that they can count on you in return. So usually people are willing and ready to help you get to where you're trying to go, whether it's the end of a project or reaching a metric or a goal in the office, right? It's really just honestly a matter of treating people with respect and seeing your entire team as whole human beings and not just a doer getting that work done. The fourth is expanding your comfort zone. This is something that I honestly had an aha moment last night. And it's basically like being able to stretch yourself to grow. So, as comfortable as we can get in our roles, comfort can be limiting. Being part of being human and is finding new ways to continue growing, to become your best self. And while that liminal space that we're in can be comfortable, it can also be scary. You want to push yourself, try a new way to do a project or consider taking like a professional or even personal development course. Be open and be vulnerable and lean into growth and expanding your comfort zone, because it's in those moments that we're led to power and possibility. And practicing this at work can lead to others feeling inspired to do the same. So be willing to expand your comfort zone to grow, because as human beings, it's important that we're ever evolving and growing and learning. And then the last one is my favorite. Have fun. Fun is for me key to being a human being and not a human doing, right? I don't always want to be working. I don't always want to be accomplishing some things. I want to be mindful. I want to be. And so think of a situation. Maybe there's a coworker that you know who may be having a hard time, or maybe they're having an off day. Maybe go up to them and share a story. Share a story that is similar to a feeling that they are going through at the same time, and maybe that story ends in success, and so that gives them hope. Or if it ends in failure, right? At this, that's, I think, my opinion, is a great way to connect, to bond, to let them know that they're not alone, right? Being mindful of the fact that others have feelings, that others go through life just like you. And doing this in the workplace would really help to create, healthier spaces for us, safe spaces for us to be, not just at home, not just, behind closed doors, but also at work as well. So I think that's it. Yes. Thank you so much for listening, joining. Any questions?
Wonderful. Well, the question that we have queued up as far as your contribution to the giveaway, and I want to give the opportunity for anyone who wants to ask Alexis a question about her presentation that she just gave. So I'm gonna
So I can answer the giveaway and networking. So networking, I don't know if you guys heard baby crying. I'm going to try to be there. I have two little ones, but I definitely am going to try to be there tonight. And then the giveaway. So my giveaway is I've created this deck of cards, and they are basically journaling cards, conversation starters that can be used at work, at home, and they're dig deep questions to help you get to the core of who you are. And so I just released a new 15 card expansion pack, and so it's fall story cards. It's I think I just said it. Yeah, 15 of them. So that's in there, along with a gratitude journal and one of our Own Your Power, Share Your Story pins. So it's like a little journaling kit.
Fantastic. We will make sure to put the link in the chat for those who don't already have their add-on ticket. It's $5. We'll be doing the grand prize giveaway between that networking session between 8 to 9 p.m. tonight Eastern time. For those of you who are joining us from other time zones, we are located here in New York. So shout out to the Rochester folks on the call. Great. Well, then we are going to take another bio break, and we'll reconvene in about 9 minutes at 7 p.m. Eastern time. We will hear from Dr. Marie Celestin. In our focus for her conversation, and the remaining speakers will be around gratitude wellness tools. So Marie Celestin, then we'll have Iralma Pozo around her topic, which is Be Well as You Excel. And we will conclude that section of our 2022 Employee Wellness Summit with Dr. Charmain Jackman on managing racial trauma in the workplace. So come on back for planting seeds of self-care with Dr. Marie Celestin.